Hi, I'm David Hochberg, host of Home Sweet Home Chicago. This is our long-form interview series called Home Sweet Home Podcast, where we interview local business leaders and experts on the show, dive a little deeper than we have time on the radio. I'd like to welcome John Cerasani from 2000% Raised to Home Sweet Home Chicago. Welcome, John.
How you doing? Happy to be here.
Well, you and I've been following you for about a year now.
Yep.
I found you. You cracked me up. You have a waterfall in your house. You know, I saw you dance when you got your first 100,000 followers. I'm like, this guy's completely out of his mind. I've got to follow him. Yep. And I reached out to you. It was a year ago when I first reached out to you
about the cop stuff
for the Vestathon.
Yeah.
We got another one coming up, and I'm just like,
yep.
So I'm like, hey, this guy's doing a ton of stuff with CPDs. He's all over with the cops.
Yep.
He's dropping stakes off. He's getting coins. He's getting the Challenger coins and all that stuff. And I'm just like, I got to reach out to him.
Sure.
So you and I just sent you a message. Hey, I'm doing this thing. You thought my radio show was not on WGN. It was in a closet, and kind of surprised when you actually called into a real radio show.
Yeah, there was something. I answered a DM you sent, and you said you had a show on WGN. So I was just operating under the assumption that it's a legitimate show and stuff. Well, then we exchanged information. And, you get a lot of DMs from different people. But when you started emailing me, it wasn't a WGN account. Right. It was a mortgage account.
Right.
So my perception of what I just agreed to morphed into me thinking this is to promote your mortgage business, and you're using the Chicago Bulletproof Vest Marathon as a means to do that. So I was kind of like, all right, I already told this guy I'm going to do it. And then
I walk into it, right?
And then obviously when we called in, it was very clear once I heard your voice through the phone that, okay, this is actually a real show.
And that's a great way to segue, because I'm a full-time mortgage professional, part-time radio host here in Chicago on WGN.
Yeah.
Have a 3-hour radio show Saturdays after House Smarts with Lou Manfredini. It's a real estate show. I bring on real estate experts, family-owned businesses, the owners, and they talk about either floods or air conditioning or roofing or whatever it is. Yeah. And I just tie it all together. So I reached out to you a couple of months ago and said, hey, I see what you're doing. I follow your stuff all the time. I love when you absolutely squash the putt. They got to be careful because it's WGN. The people that try to criticize you and insult you, I love how you just put them bug against the windshield. I love that. And I reached out to you like, hey, I see what you're doing, trying to get not only about gambling and writing the gambling book and how to gamble, but also pivoting into financial wellness.
Right.
And starting to give financial advice to you've got over 500,000 followers. And I'm just like, hey, maybe we could do some collaboration, because a lot of the listeners that I have and a lot follow you, and they have the same challenges.
Right.
They don't know what it's like to purchase a home. They don't know why the credit's important. They don't know how the number one way to build wealth in the United States is always real estate. So let's just talk a little bit about your background.
Sure.
Insurance, you went, explain that to our listeners who might not be aware of you.
Yeah, so my Instagram page it really kind of went full circle what you're referring to there when I went back to the financial literacy stuff. What happened is that's all I used to post about, quite honestly. And then the gambling stuff kind of taken on a life of its own. And because it gets the views and the likes and all that stuff, Dave, I kind of leaned into that, probably more than I should, because the OGs of the page are like, hey, dude, remember when you used to give us advice like you were a big brother or something? Let's get back to that. So I have my 2025 is to lean more into that. I have a really cool story from an entrepreneurial perspective. I worked in corporate America as a W-2 employee. I saw how W-2 employees and what's expected of them in corporate America. I was drinking the Kool-Aid of the job titles and all this stuff, and I got to tell you, I'm blessed because I had an epiphany at 27 years old that I think most people never have. And when I had that epiphany, I left Arthur J. Gallagher, who was a very notable company. Yeah, very big in the insurance space. And I think they're third largest in the world or something like that. They used to be fourth, but one of the two ahead of them, I think, merged or something. And the product is us as the employees. We're doing the consultation. We're doing the brokering of the business. Okay, that we are the product. So you start looking at it a little bit differently. Like, well, if I'm the product and I'm bringing in this revenue, you can see the number of revenue you're bringing in. all right, I see what you're paying me. Yeah. Where's the delta going? Well, the delta's our name. It's the job security and all this stuff. So I really started focusing on that and decided that it made more sense for me to go out on my own than do that, despite all the 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds telling me I'm crazy. Exactly.
You'll never make as much money as you'll make here.
Well, and the sad part about it, Dave, was that they didn't believe that either. They knew I probably would, or they didn't want to believe it, and then they were questioning their own actions. Because if I was making $140,000, that means they were making closer to $200 or $250 at that organization back then, and now they're 42 years old with a kid in college, and they're not in a position to walk away from a $250,000 job.
Sure.
Okay.
With $60,000 to $80,000 to $120,000 worth of student loan debt on top of that.
Exactly. Right. You know, and some people just aren't built for it anyway. Some of the people, like, they should be employees at a place like that, and that should be their life. But I saw something that nobody wanted me to see. I started talking about this on social media. Well, let me slow down. 10 years later, I ended up selling that company into private equity. And it made me a multi-millionaire with generational wealth, Dave. And to think that 9.5 years prior to that, people were telling me I'm an idiot for walking away from that $140,000 a year job. You feel me?
100%.
So now I'm 37 years old, and hey, here I am, guys. And I had to play out an employment contract for a few years at that point. But now I'm in my lower 40s, and I'm free and clear. And all this happened between the company was sold in 2015, and then I was done in 2019. So it put me in a really, really rare position. Pandemic comes, all that stuff, buddy, and we start posting on social media, and I start dabbling into some angel investing, early stage venture capital. Next thing I know, I'm around some pretty influential, high-profile people in LA. My social media starts to get more popular. I start meeting celebrities. They start hearing my story. And what was really cool to me was as I met these pro athletes or former pro athletes or actors or Hollywood types of people, as cool as I thought it was to be around them, they thought it was cool to be around a business person that was able to retire before he was 40. And that's when the light bulb really went off for me. I decided to write a book. You got a copy of it over there called 2000% Raise. And, you know, I never stopped doing the same job, man. I just decided to do it for myself with me on top of the org chart.
You're a gambler.
Yep.
Okay, you post videos at blackjack, high limits, and no gem pop or not gem pop is your slogan. The best bet, is this true or false? The best bet you ever made was the bet you made on yourself.
Yeah, man. I feel like I'm way up, and I got to remind myself of that every once in a while. If I have a big loss at the casino, I'll be like, you know what? Yeah. I didn't lose blah 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 millions. I lost, just a few bucks. So no, it was 100% the best bet I ever made was that on myself, and it was a big bet, man, because you're going against the grain, dude. You're telling people you're doing something that everyone tells you is false.
Right.
You know what I mean? It would be like betting the freaking, putting all your money on the hard eights instead of the pass line on a craps table. That's a long shot, man. You don't put all your money on there, just a little bit. No, we're putting it all on there, buddy. And that was really the equivalent. Everyone told me I'm nuts.
So I want to get into, you did your version of Shark Tank.
Yeah.
Which was fantastic.
Thank you.
You, local businesses, submit local charities.
Yep.
Submitted their application or their resume, and you picked some of them and you interviewed them. And the fascinating thing was, when they met you, to them it was like meeting Elvis.
Thank you.
Because nobody had given them the guidance.
Yeah.
That you, and it's tough love, right? I mean, listen, you see your video and you're like, this, that, and the other, and you get it. Some of it's show and some of it's play, but it's all you,
right?
And you're like, I'm not going to Rivers and this way, but all that stuff, right? But underneath that, there's caring, right? There is empathy, and the videos that you did with those business owners and those entrepreneurs.
Yeah, man.
Was really cool because you were essentially their big brother.
Thank you.
Their coach.
Yeah.
And you transitioned. You looked at something and you saw 4 or 5 layers, and they're just seeing, how do I get over the speed bump?
Right.
And you're like, okay, you got to do this, and then we got to do this, we got to do this.
Yeah.
What did that do for you, and what did it do for the businesses and the entrepreneurs that you helped out?
Yeah. So what was really interesting about that whole show is called The Partner at John Cerasani TV on YouTube.
Strongly recommend everybody goes to. Very well done.
You'll learn a lot. You definitely learn it. I'm going to probably, if you ever go back to like the first season of Shark Tank. Watch the first season of Shark Tank and then watch the 5th season of Shark Tank. I could guarantee you think the first season's really boring.
Right.
And what is this show, okay? So I go back, there's some things I would definitely change, but people got to remember, man, it's just me putting this together. I had my assistant, Bree, who's like 27 years old and works at freaking Google. This is not her full-time job. Then I got Frank Fontana, who is an old TV guy that has this production company now. And, you know, it's not like we had some high-end casting company or a big team out there. I mean, Fontana did a good job to make it a good, production. But still the creative part of it was really like just me coming up with this stuff. And I got to tell you, man, it was we didn't really know where it was going to go. The idea was I was going to invest in a company,
right,
and that was going to be how it ended. But it ended up unfolding in a way where people didn't even necessarily need money. They just wanted like my guidance on
business
things.
Plan, right?
Yeah. So I ended up actually picking 4 different companies. One definitely materialized because it was a nonprofit, and that guy is very, very happy. Brian Swift with SOAR. We've remained friends. One of them was the guy I went to high school with, actually, or grammar school with, that I haven't talked to in 35 years. And he has a higher end like window treatment company where they motorize window treatments.
Sure.
And it was cool, but when we came down to actually working with each other, he didn't like really have he doesn't have a social media presence, and he doesn't come from that world.
Right.
He works through designers. So I'm trying to bring this value of promoting it online. You know, he appreciated it and stuff, but like it started to realize as we kind of went through diligence that, dude, this isn't going to be good. He's either going to think I'm ripping him off, or I'm going to be like, this is taking off too much of my time for what I'm giving. So we kind of just agreed to kind of like, hey, this was fun, but we're going to not do this. One guy that won just ghosted me. I think he just wanted to win.
Oh, wow.
and wanted nothing. I think he just wanted to put his stuff out there, and that was it, and that's fine. And then another guy had just took over his family's dental business, a guy named Kyle Lims, really good dude. And he took over his dental business from his father, not a dentistry, they manufacture dental supplies. Mm-hmm. And him and I have a really good working relationship. You know, initially the deal was supposed to be for me to take a percentage of the company. And we were kind of leaning into that, but we said, you know what, let's like do a consulting agreement here. Okay. And we have an ongoing working relationship. So I'm happy with how it turned out, but I guess ultimately what I'm saying here is season 2, if there is one, which there probably will be, is going to be a little bit faster paced. It's probably going to be me involved to say, hey, I'm putting $25,000 to one business. We're going to have one winner, that kind of thing. Because I kind of spread myself too thin on this thing. I ain't going to lie. You know what I mean? And we also did it over 8 weeks. So it got kind of like, by the 7th week, it's like, all right. You know what I mean?
So shorter, more focused.
Pretty quicker, I think, and just more my personality. But I think people enjoyed seeing me not like yelling into the phone like I am on Instagram, right. But at the same time, I think it could have moved a little bit quicker. All
right, let's transition to real estate, because one of your major focuses this year is to get back to the education part.
Yep. And
I reached out to you. I'm like, hey, I do mortgages for a living. I have this 3-hour radio show on WGN every single weekend. I hear the challenges from my listeners who are your followers.
Right.
It's the same thing. Single mother, divorced mother in Bangor, Maine is the same as a divorced mother or father in San Diego, Alaska, or Key West. It doesn't matter. They have the same challenges, and let's help them out. Right?
Yep.
And I was watching your video, and I took a step back. I'm like, that's what John's doing. So let's see if we can't collaborate and try to get the bigger masses out. And you're trying to build wealth for your followers. Right. And the easiest way to build wealth throughout the past 100 years in the United States has been real estate. Yep. And let's transition you. I bought my first home here, 2800 Lakeshore Drive. Last building on Diversity, I think I was 28 years old for $119,000. All right. I think I put 10% down. Yep. And away it goes. What was your first property? How old were you?
It was 2000. I was 23 years old, right after college. I moved in with my parents initially, but I brought a Dalmatian home with me from college, and that wasn't really flying with my dad. So my days were numbered, and I was also making money right away. I had this side hustle with a nightclub promotion company, and then I was making real money at my normal job. So it's like, why am I living in my parents' basement with a Dalmatian anyway? But I bought a townhouse in Schaumburg for $135,000, and ended up selling it. I lived there as my primary, and And then that's when everything was going up all the time.
Yeah.
You know, 01, 02, 03.
Good years.
Yeah, man. So I started thinking, well, why isn't everyone buying multiple houses? I don't get it. Well, they didn't have the experience and the life knowledge that I had. I just thought this was the world. Everything goes up 10% a year, bro. That's always been this way.
Until 06, 07.
Yeah. So I lived there for a couple of years, and then I started, bro, just buying other places that would come for sale in the suburbs. And what I would do is I'd buy them, live in them, try to get them rented. I was like a gypsy. I would try to get them rented out, and then once I got a renter, move into another one and buy it. I was up to, well, at one point, later in life, I had about 15 at once, but over the years, I had about 25. But there was a point where I went from Schaumburg to another place in Schaumburg to a place in Streamwood to a place in Elk Grove within like a 7-month period.
Oh, and everybody does know those are all geographically close, so
Correct.
it's easier to manage.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And I was living in them too, right? So it's like, you know, but here's the catch, man. And this was necessary for the mortgage industry, but there were some shady mother effers out there in the mortgage industry, dude. And I didn't know any better to know how shady it was. I mean, there's guys that were doing stuff then that would probably go to jail now. They might have had to go to jail back. They might have. I don't know if they would have
gone to jail if they would have got caught. But
back then. They would have
looking anything. Yeah.
Okay, and I don't know, you know, where because Dave, we were doing stuff like this, bro. I was buying places. They called it a stated income loan, 40-year interest only payments, like 3% down. And it was like insanity, man. And then I would take. There was one closing I did, dude. It was like next to Conant High School in Schaumburg, Illinois, and right there on Plum Grove, a little subdivision called Dunbar Lakes. I bought this place for $117,000. They wanted like 2% down, but we put into there that there was going to be like a $5,000 carpet allowance. You know what I mean?
Cost credit. Yep.
Which was just made up, dude.
Okay.
And, like,
well, that's illegal.
Exactly. I walked out of there with like $3,000 and made money on the closing.
Right.
And then I sold the place I mean, actually, if I could have sold it a couple years later for like $180.
Right.
But, you know, no one had their crystal ball. So I ended up selling it more like 7 years later for about $5,000 more than I bought it for. But that's that because of 08.
Well, yeah, because 08 happened and everybody doesn't know the subprime collapsed. And there were a lot of crazy things going on.
Because of crap like that. Because mortgage brokers were giving 23-year-olds freaking 5 houses at a time.
Yeah.
And I happen to be in white collar America and be able to keep up with it. And I put that pressure on myself to keep making money.
Yep.
But the problem is there was mortgage brokers doing this for bartenders, for strippers, for, you know, everybody. And they weren't able to keep up with it.
Stated income, and I will say this, 2025, stated income loans were great loans when used in the right situation for the right borrower.
Okay.
Just like morphine is a great drug.
Yep.
When I had my back surgery, when my L4, L5 exploded and I had to go in for surgery, I was on morphine.
Yeah.
It was phenomenal.
Right.
But guess what? I didn't poop for a week. And I'm just like, I got to get off this stuff.
Yep.
And if you continue to take it, you'll have no teeth and you'll be living under the viaduct with the sign, I'm hungry, you know, when people get off the off-ramp.
Yep.
So in the right situation, in the right, you know, with the right borrower in the right situation, they're still good. But guess what? We dropped an atomic bomb on our industry, and those are gone. So whatever. There are other products. That's what I wanted to get into.
Yeah.
You built wealth while you were working, selling insurance.
Right.
Building this wealth, flipping properties. You move into it. It was your owner occupied. Then you move out, rent it. You got super low rates. Great. That's the game.
Right.
Right.
And I had a whole, bro, so not everyone could quit their job and become a multimillionaire by selling their company to private equity. Not everybody could do that.
Right.
But what most people can do is what I was doing before I had that epiphany when I was 27. And I was buying these rental properties. And I had a whole Excel spreadsheet, bro. I expect my W-2 income to climb like this each over year. By the time I'm 40, I'll have this property paid off. I'm gonna pull the home equity from these 3 rental properties to pay down to get a huge down payment to go buy a $2 million house when I'm 40. I've made it. This is my whole plan. And it was all put together really nicely. Then 08 happened and I put a dent in that. But honestly, if I didn't go do something else, I could have kept with that plan. That was a sound plan.
Right.
You know what I mean? You know, the idea of someone else paying your mortgage, your homeowners association fees, your property taxes.
And taking a rip
and
off
rent.
of that on top if you were cash flowing properly.
Well, yeah, and also, dude, I know people are putting, the whole 3% thing down. Maybe you probably know better than me. I don't know if that's still a thing anymore.
Still
but
a thing.
Okay,
right.
But let's say it's 20% down, though. Even if it's 20% down, okay, that house is appreciating 4 or 5%. Let's say conservatively a year, or what, is that conservative?
The industry standard is here, according to, I looked it up before you came. According to S&P Case Shiller report, the U.S. housing prices index, the national average of real estate appreciated between 3 to 5% over the past 25 years.
Boom. Okay. So let's just use easy numbers. Let's say you bought a house for $100,000 and you only put 20% down, or you put 20% down, $20,000. Okay, and you're able to rent that place out to cover your $80,000 mortgage, your property taxes, and your homeowners association. Sure. Yeah. You're able to just break even, not even profit, break even. Okay. And that house appreciates 5% a year. Okay. From an investment standpoint,
makes all the sense in the
world. You're not only making 5% because you only put 20% on there. That 5% is on $100,000. 100%. So now it's worth $105,000. You just turned your $20,000 into $25,000. And that's why real estate's powerful, man.
It's all
that's
leverage.
It. Yeah.
It's all leverage. I ran some numbers. I bought my second condo for $175,000. Okay. If I kept it on an annual 3.9% appreciation over those 25 years, $175,000 condo. Yeah. Today would be worth $465,500.
Wow.
To your point.
Yeah.
And if I never refinance, the other side of that is that you got the appreciation on the upside, but you also are starting to whittle down that principal.
Yes.
It's like throwing a rock at a tank.
Yep.
But slowly but surely.
Yep.
You're slicing it.
Yep.
A millimeter a month.
Gigantic. That's huge, though.
It's huge.
If you're playing the long game, that's huge. And then you just pick, if you're not doing this as a primary and just doing it as investments, still, man, like as long as you could cover that nut, man, you're in good shape. Now I'm gonna tell you, I've not really swings and misses, but let's call them bunts that didn't get me as far as I thought.
Sure.
I own a few places in the Trump Tower. One of them I lived in, which is fine, but a couple of the others I bought just for investment purposes. And in a building like that, the association fee is really high. Parking's a lot of money. Yeah. The taxes are high there too. So it's hard to get those expenses all covered underneath what you're going to charge for rent. Now, the mortgage piece of it, though, and I don't know if you've ever talked about this with your audience, but the mortgage piece is interesting because if you really want to look at it, okay, let's say you're 5 years into that mortgage, okay, your payment hasn't changed.
Not at all.
But the money going towards principal and interest has changed.
Increases.
So when you look at what breaking even is, you shouldn't be putting the whole mortgage payment in. You should put the mortgage payment minus the principal.
I saw a video you did on that.
Yeah.
And that's when I'm like, I got to reach out to John because he gets it.
A lot of people don't understand that.
A lot of people don't understand.
Yeah.
So what we're saying, if you have a $2,000 mortgage payment, principal and interest, just break it down.
Yeah.
And you get it, and you've got $500 going towards the principal, right? Your nut is effectively $1,500.
Correct.
Is what you got to cover.
Because you're paying the $1,500 to yourself.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the other challenge you have here, owning 3 properties in the Trump Tower, is that the Trump Tower that you own 3 properties in is located in downtown Chicago, which isn't a very Trump-friendly place.
No crap. Rename it the Obama Inn, and it will appreciate. The Jussie Smollett Tower, and I'm going to be a freaking billionaire.
Mr. Tuna fish sandwich at 20 below at the wind chill at 3 in the morning.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So we talked at breakfast. We broke bread about a week ago.
Yeah.
I said, and you were talking 20% down, 20% down. You had that in your head. I'm like, you could buy property for 3% down for conventional and FHA for 3.5%.
Yeah.
And you run with private mortgage insurance, and everybody's like, private mortgage insurance sucks, and it's like knocking on a door to pick up your girlfriend and saying, "Hi, Mr. Smith, I'm David Hochberg. I have gonorrhea, and I'm here to pick up your girlfriend."
Right.
It's like that. Everybody's like, PMI is horrible. No.
Yeah.
It's a cost. It's a cost of buying a piece of property.
Yep.
And if you could cover that cost in with the rent while you're getting appreciation and paying down, and then eventually it'll go away as the place appreciates.
Don't you have to get, though, this I guess is more of a question than anything, but it would have had to have been a primary a primary residence in the first place to even have that, right? Because for rental property, you got to put 20% down, right?
No, another fallacy.
Okay.
I'm glad we're having these conversations. You can get into rental properties for as little as 10% down.
Really?
Yeah, and there's some programs you could get in with these DSCR loans. You go zero down if you have a good enough credit and the cash flows, right? It just goes off of the cash flow on an investment property.
So I used to play the game where we're going back 20 years, but I used to play the game where you'd put 20% down in the first mortgager's eyes, but really I'm also taking a 10% home equity line of credit.
80-10-10.
So I'm only coming up with 10%.
Yeah, those were great.
You feel me?
I feel you. I did a ton of those loans.
But the only reason, the whole point of that, was just to get out of the PMI.
Right. But the challenge with that is, it's great when the rates are low.
Okay.
Right? Challenge is with appreciating markets and you have PMI, the PMI will go away. And that payment will disappear with the HELOC behind it or HELoan behind it. What John's talking about is this, just to break it down for listeners who have no idea what we're talking about. If you buy $100,000,
they're like, talk about blackjack. What is this crap?
Right, splitting aces. Okay. So if you're buying a $100,000 place, you put 80%. You have a first loan for $80,000. And then you're coming in with the second loan for $10,000, so it's 80-10, and you're bringing in 10. Back in the day, we used to be able to do 80-15-5s, which means 80% first loan, 15% second loan, 5% down. And back in the day, we used to be doing 80% first, 20% seconds, and you'd be able to buy the place with no money down. So in those situations, right, if the place appreciated, you'd still have that second loan, either at 10%, 15%, or 20%. With PMI, by the way, those loans aren't as readily available today as they were back in the day. About past 15 years, a lot of things have changed.
Right.
A lot of things.
Mostly for the good, though. That industry needed correcting, man.
It was the Wild West.
Yeah.
It was the Wild West. And these scumbags that were – we had some scumbags on the radio here in Chicago. I would call into that piece of crap's loan, call them out during the break, and then he'd rip me on air, and he didn't have the stones to bring me on. So whatever. Okay, I'm still here. He's not. I still have a radio show. He doesn't.
He's in jail. He's in jail.
No, he's not in jail. He's not in jail. Whatever. Let's. I don't need his attorneys calling me. So in those type of situations, PMI is great if used in the right situation, just like the morphine analysis. Right situation. So I'll give you an example. Right now, you could buy 3% down. I got numbers here in Chicago. The max conforming loan limit's $806,500, which means you could buy a home up to $831,443 with only 3% down.
Wow. Okay.
So you talk about taking markers out and leveraging and splitting aces, doubling down. Right? It's the same concept.
Right.
You have a strategy at the blackjack table. You have a strategy at the craps table. It's the same type of strategy in the real estate market. You don't have to bring. Everybody's looking today. The average median price here in Chicago is around $400,000. Who the hell's got $80,000 if you're a first-time home buyer coming out of the box?
No one does.
$24,000. That's an achievable goal. So that's the sort of thing I wanted to just talk about. How important, with all of your experience with real estate, with the properties that you had, the properties that you leveraged, the properties that you flipped, and use the equity to buy other. How important is it to your followers to understand the leverage game, especially in real estate?
Yeah, man. I think just even being able to follow the conversation that we're having right now. A lot of people don't even really understand it, man.
Take hit go back, right? Go back 5 minutes, replay it. Go back 5 minutes, just keep replaying until it sinks in.
What I think people really need to understand what LTV means, loan to value, because that gives you the basis of how they're going to underwrite your mortgage or whatever line of credit they're going to give you on your house. And let's say the easiest way, if it's a $1 million house and you could get 90% LTV, that means you could borrow up to $900,000 on it. And if your first mortgage is $500,000, let's say you bought a place for $500,000 and you mortgaged $450,000. And you got the jackpot, and it's a gentrified area, and now that place is $1 million. Okay, your mortgage is still only $450,000, pal. Guess what though? You could take a line of credit out against that house, a second mortgage, put cash in your hands, up to, in that scenario, $900,000. So now we put another $500,000 or $450,000 in your hand. Now what are you going to do with that money? Take that money, buy other real estate properties. Take that money, invest it in the markets, whatever. all, though, depends on what your interest rate is. I'm not saying go run around and do that, but this is what rich people do. They don't let that money just sit there in their thing. Some people say the rich get richer. Well, a lot of it's because they're doing stuff like this that the middle class doesn't bother to pay attention to. My brother's a high school teacher, football coach, really good dude, really good at his profession and everything else. And our dad passed away a couple years ago. And my dad was also a high school teacher, football coach and gym teacher. My brother kind of followed in his footsteps to degree. Well, my dad was a good saver, man, a good saver. Illinois pension, they take care of their teachers, and my dad saved money over all the years. And me and my brother got a couple bucks left to us. Okay, well, my brother and his wife decided to use that money to pay off their mortgage. Okay. And we had this conversation. He understands it. He's not a dummy. He just didn't want to do it. But all right, man, you just paid off, let's just say, a 4% mortgage. Right. Let's say you could have
bonds were at 5 1/4 or something safe at 7. Right?
Yeah. You paid off a mortgage. Let's say 4%. It's costing you 4%. You could have made 8% over the years in the market. To him, you don't want to mess with it. You don't want to mess with it. You know what I mean? But that's the mindset, though. I just promote, hey, understand it. I ain't telling you what to do with your money, but understand this is how it works.
So wife and I built a home. March of 01.
Yeah.
2021, rates were still low. We got into a 10. It was 03 when we 2023, right before everything started going crazy.
Yep.
Locked into a 10-year interest only loan.
Okay.
At 2.375%.
Okay.
So my thought process.
Wait, a 10-year interest.
10-year IO at 2 3/8.
But it's amortized on 30 years still, correct?
It's amortized on 30 years.
Yeah.
So I've got 7 years left. March will be 7 years that I'm in the loan.
Okay.
I've got to do something.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, instead of paying down my mortgage in Northbrook, Illinois, which is right down the street from you in Barrington,
yep,
it's appreciating because they're not making any more dirt in Barrington, they're not making any more dirt in Schaumburg, they're not making any more dirt in Northbrook.
Right.
And if my financial planner, you said, your brother's a football coach,
right?
He has a mindset. I don't want risk.
Yep.
He had a 4% loan. Great rate. 70% of Americans right now that have a mortgage have a rate under 5%. Or 40% of homeowners own their home free and clear. Now your brother moved from this category over here.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that. Right? That's why Baskin Robbins has 31 flavors. I always say this, right? It's a different flavor for every day of the month.
That's right.
Right? Everybody's got a different taste.
Yep.
So your brother wants to go the vanilla. He doesn't want a mortgage. Fine. He can sleep at night.
Yep.
Me, I'm just like, why the hell am I paying off this freaking mortgage at 2 3/8?
Well, to them, it's like they're rich. They don't have that $3,000 mortgage payment going out each month. What are we going to do with all this extra money? Let's go on more vacations, enjoy time with our kids. I just want people to understand it. You know what I mean? What do you? I got a question for you. So. You had mentioned that the PMI goes away if when your house appreciates, or if and when your house appreciates. Do you have to call the bank up and have them re-underwrite it?
Okay, so here's the rule. This is important for your listeners.
Yeah,
and we follow it, right? So typically you have to be in PMI for 2 years according to the guidelines, right? Okay. But if you did a ton of work on your home, or you had a major appreciation event happen in your area, because we're 1 million houses short since the collapse as a nation.
Really?
So, $1 million. Why is appreciation going crazy? Because there's not enough homes for people to buy.
Got it.
Okay, so I took a step back, but to go forward, if you have PMI, private mortgage insurance, and your loan is not FHA, it has to be a conventional loan. FHA is a whole different story.
Okay.
They screwed people over on FHA 15 years ago, and it's disgusting, but I'll move on. If you have a conventional Fannie Freddie loan and you've been in the loan for at least 2 years, or you've seen massive appreciation in your area, the simplest thing you should do is to pick up your mortgage statement or go online, find the 800 number, call up, get to the servicing department, and put in a request that they analyze your property. Because through AI, they know exactly what your property is worth, right? They've got the appraisal from when you bought it. Yeah. They've probably done hundreds, if not thousands, of loans within a 5-mile radius of your home. They know what the area is. They can look. Sometimes they might have to send an appraiser out. Okay. So that costs you $300 to $500. Okay. And it takes about 60 days. Once it comes back, PMI's gone.
So what about after 2 years? It's still the same process?
So here, the rule is, I'll give you a simple, stupid thing, right? $100,000 mortgage. You put 10% down. You run with a $90,000 loan.
Yep.
Right? So $100,000 purchase price, I should say, 10% down payment, $90,000 mortgage. In that example, per law, once that loan hits $78,000, it automatically falls off.
Okay.
So you have to get to 78% of your original loan amount for it to automatically fall off. Now, if your home goes from $100,000 to $130,000, and now you've got 90 has been paid down to 85, you're under the 80% loan to value.
Yeah.
That's when you have to be
You have to
proactive.
initiate the call.
You have to
Yeah.
initiate that call.
Or-
FHA, it's a complete screw job.
But even in that example, though, if you're at 90,000 and your house even just appreciates to 108, would get you the 20% that you
Right?
need.
Because you just picked up the 10% you need.
Yeah.
So
Are most people vigilant with this?
No.
Yeah.
'Cause
I didn't
they're
I
doing-
didn't know you could do that. I thought you would have to refinance.
John Cerasani,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You write books.
Right.
You're
Yep.
a big gambler. You know numbers.
Right.
You're writing a gambling book. You don't know this.
Right. Exactly.
So
Yeah.
most of your followers, probably 95% of your 500,000 plus, have no idea.
Right.
So if you're sitting with a mortgage, a conventional mortgage, how do you know it's conventional if you don't know? Call the 800 number on your mortgage statement or on your online statement.
Yep.
Do I have a conventional loan?
Yep.
Great. How long have you had it? You know when you originated it.
Right.
Go to Zillow.com. Go to
Yeah.
Realtor.com.
Okay.
Type in your address. Get an updated value.
Gotcha.
They're bullshit, but get an updated value.
Okay.
It'll give you an idea.
Yep.
Better yet, call the real estate professional that helped you purchase that property.
Yep.
They'd love to hear from you.
Yep.
Say, hey, Tom or Sally,
Yeah.
I'm looking to get an estimated value. I don't want a pie in the sky make me feel great.
Yep.
If we had to put the for sale sign up right now,
Yep.
I'm trying to drop my PMI. Take your loan amount, John,
Yep.
divide it by 0.8.
Right.
That's it.
Yep.
Take your loan amount, divide it by 0.8.
Yep.
And ask your realtor, is my home in today's market,
Worth
with
that.
today's current market, greater than this?
Yeah. I thought you misspoke at first. It is divided by 0.8 gets you that number.
Divided,
Yeah.
I say multiply.
No, you said it right. You said it right. I thought you meant multiply, though, when
No.
you first started saying it, and then I listened to what you were saying. It's divided. You're right.
Divided by 0.8.
Yeah. So, hey, while we're on this, like, process stuff, another question I got for you here is if I buy a house that – so it used to be like – because I used to play this game trying to pretend like it's a primary residence when it's really a rental property.
Well, that's illegal, but
Yeah.
okay, go ahead.
In 03 was the
Right.
wild, wild west, man. It was like, what's illegal back then? I mean, I was doing it under the guidance of
Right.
people with your job.
Right. You just if you put a mirror under somebody's nose back then without anything on it, and you saw fog, you had a
Get a
good shot
mortgage.
to get
Yeah.
a mortgage.
Yeah. But let me ask it a little bit different then.
Yeah.
Because here's my actual point. So I buy a primary residence. I'm in Bucktown or in Buckhead in Atlanta, wherever the heck you're
Sure.
listening. Okay.
Great areas.
Move out to the suburbs. I'm gonna go out to Marietta, Georgia now, and move out to the suburbs, man. And I met my fiance. We're gonna go raise a kid out there. I had this place for 2 years. I did it as a primary. They only had me put 5% down,
Sure.
and I got this interest rate. Am I able to convert that to a rental property? I guess ethically and legally, without telling anybody.
100%.
Okay.
100%.
Okay. So they just care.
You're not doing anything nefarious.
Okay.
Right. So hypothetical situation: you bought between March of 2000,
Yep.
when COVID hit, and we all thought we were going to die.
Yep.
Right. So what happened?
March of
Rates dropped.
2020. Yeah.
2020.
Yeah.
Right. March of 2020 through January of 2023.
Yep.
Okay. If you did something in there, your rate's going to start with either a 2 or a 3.
Yep.
If you now 2-3 years later, right? The circumstances that you presented, that was your primary residence.
Yep.
You fell in love, you married somebody, whatever, you had a kid. It's too small. Guess
Yeah.
what? You want to get
Right.
to better school districts. Hey,
Yep.
got another job, I want to be closer. And the other 100 variable reasons that you want to move. That home with the low interest rate, there is nothing illegal. There's nothing unethical about keeping that property as a rental property. And you and your family now pick up, schlep out to the burbs.
Yep.
You can buy a new home for 3% down. Or
Yep.
you, like you mentioned earlier, you rip out a home equity line of credit.
Use that as a down payment.
Use
Yeah.
that as a down payment.
If I went to the same bank and used the same bank for those mortgages, and it was like kind of back to back like that, let's say in a year, would it raise eyebrows for that bank?
No, it's typically if you're doing it here. We just did a loan. A doctor up here, out by you in Barrington.
Okay.
We did his primary loan there, 1.2, and then he had a Florida home, down a second home down in Florida.
Yeah.
That when he retires, is going to be his primary. We just closed it 90 days ago.
Yep.
Calls up and he goes, hey, we just came across this unbelievable opportunity closer to the water with a dock and a slip and all this stuff. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
We put an offer in.
Yep.
Okay. 90 days later. So that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
He's selling his other gigantic $1 million home to buy another home.
Okay.
That makes sense. It's got to make sense.
Yep.
If you start jumping every 30 days.
And the underwriters are human beings. They're going to ask these questions. They're going to want to know, okay.
Right.
Yeah. And, I got to tell you, man.
And, well, hang on. And compliance officers.
Okay.
Now we have compliance officers. Not many mortgage companies had compliance officers back in the day.
Yep.
Right? It was just like, they relied on the lender that they were sending the loan to do the scratch and sniff test to see if it smelled bad.
Yeah.
But now you've got compliance officers. We all have NMLS numbers.
Yep.
And it's all regulated.
Yep.
Like, how many foreclosures, loans did Hochberg originate? And I will tell you, I've originated foreclosed loans. You know why, John? I can't stop people from dying.
Yep.
I can't stop people from getting sick. I can't stop people from getting divorced.
Right.
I can't stop people from having substance dependency challenges.
Right.
I can't help people from losing their jobs.
Right.
So there are so many different variables. All because a home went into foreclosure doesn't mean that loan officer did a bad loan.
But the compliance
Life
stuff
happens.
is internal, though, to protect the company, or it's for legality reasons?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The bigger the company, we've got a whole department.
Yeah.
And we go through compliance training.
Yeah.
And I tell my guys, if it's on the cracks, we ain't doing it.
Okay.
Right? So I could have somebody call into the show here on Saturday. Hochberg screwed me, and one of your loan officers shoehorned me into a loan. No.
Yeah.
I tell more listeners not to do loans.
Yep.
Because it's not in their best interest.
Yep.
And maybe go get a line of credit, and we'll introduce you to a home equity line of credit partner of ours.
So I got a situation right now. It's actually a really good. Somebody I grew up with, a friend of mine, got in a little trouble as an adult and had to kind of go away for a little bit. And this is the guy that had been making $250,000, $300,000 since we were 19 years old, and all in a legal way.
Yeah.
Made a couple bad decisions as a grown man that never been in trouble in his life. And
Life happens.
yeah. So 10 months later, he's coming out. He's got to start from scratch. He's got about $400,000 in equity.
In a home.
In an $800,000 house.
Okay. Yep.
And actually, no, more than that. I think his balance is like $270 or something. The house would praise for $800 or $860.
So you got $600. Geez.
Yeah. So he's but he used up all his liquid money on lawyers and stuff, which obviously didn't end up paying off for him. but
well, maybe it did. Maybe it would have been in longer if he didn't.
Well, you know what? That's probably true. And he's just in a position right now where he wants to figure out, this next phase of to go back to starting his business, and he's going to get back on his feet. He's in a trade that he's going to be able to make money at no matter what. But for this temporary period, though, no paycheck, no W-2, no taxes for last year because it wasn't here.
Right.
And I said, well, here's how it works, man. 80% LTV you could usually access, but
unique situations.
Yeah.
So in that type of situation, I've seen almost everything. That's a new one. So thank you for that one.
Yeah.
While he's away, his credit probably went invisible.
Okay.
Right? Because he's not buying anything. He's not paying anything off unless somebody was using credit cards on the outside.
Yeah.
So here's a perfect example. He's one of the 26 million Americans that are credit invisible.
Okay.
That don't have any credit. That the younger generation is the worst.
Yeah.
Because your kids, you got a beautiful daughter, great, young son in high school. They use their debit cards.
Yeah.
For everything.
Right. Yep.
And I will challenge your listeners. Yeah. Look up Frank Abagnale. Do you agree?
Oh, Catch Me If You Can.
Thank you.
Yep.
2002. Leonardo DiCaprio played him. Tom
Great
Hanks.
movie.
Great movie.
Yeah.
Right. I bring it up in front of classes and colleges, and they're like, what the hell are you talking about?
Tom Hanks, too.
Tom Hanks as the FBI agent chasing him down.
Yeah.
Google Frank Abagnale, debit cards. There's a 4-minute video, which is fantastic.
Okay.
He thinks debit cards, and so do I, are the worst financial investment you could possibly make.
Okay.
He's like, you could eliminate 99.9% of the risk of a bad transaction by using a credit card.
Right. Yeah.
Because if somebody steals your credit card, Amex, right, Discover, Visa, that's not my charge. It just happened. It just happened to me a week ago. $179 at Roma.com. Hey, Amex, I got an alert, call up, got to shut you down. We're sending you all new cards. Use a debit card.
Right.
That $179 is gone.
It's gone, buddy.
Guess what? It's gonna take you probably, according to Frank, who's working for the FBI now, 2 months to file a claim with your bank to do the investigation. If you need that $179 to feed your family, to make your car payment, to make your rent payment, if you have it on a credit card, Amex, it's not mine.
Right.
So what your friend has to do, assuming he's part of the community of the 26 million Americans, and this is where the education process comes in. And I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to have you in here and to educate your followers on this.
Right.
The debit card is the worst financial instrument on the planet. You are not building any credit.
Yep.
Now, I've got a 21-year-old, a 19-year-old, and a 16-year-old. Yep. And I talk to their friends. They all use debit. I'm like, why don't you have a credit card? Right? You have to be 18 to get a credit card. They're like, we're scared. I'm like, what are you scared of? Well, you got to make the payment. I'm like, how about this? Charge something on a credit card. Start learning. Take the training wheels off. Every Friday. Why Friday? Because it's freaking Friday. Who forgets a Friday?
Right.
Go online, pay it off. And if you can't pay it off, then guess what? You shouldn't have bought the damn thing in the first place.
Exactly.
So your friend who had a little vacation, okay, he did his time, he's back. Number one, that doesn't preclude you from buying a home. There are some people think, I'm an ex-con, I can't buy a home. Wrong.
Okay.
Not at all. You just need credit, a good job. Now, he's going to have an employment gap is what they call it because he was away. So we have to explain that. So maybe somebody in your friend's situation, he's going to have to get a co-signer in order to access the liquidity in his home, the equity, do a cash-out refinance to do what he needs to do.
So how much flexibility is there with that? Because here's what I was thinking, okay? I'm thinking, hey, no way you're getting 80. Forget the co-signer part. Say he's on his own. No one's giving me 80% right now with no income and no taxes. Okay?
100% correct.
However, maybe you could make a case for 50%.
Still challenging with no credit history. But I will tell you.
But just on the house itself, though.
You're going to pay usury rates. And you're going to pay huge fees if you find somebody to do that.
Okay.
And the cost associated with extracting that money and what it's going to cost you to obtain that money might be prohibitive.
Okay.
Because he has no job and he has no credit. But here, I could help.
Okay.
Anybody, if you're part of the 26 million Americans out there who are credit invisible, or you've had credit challenges in your past, or an episode like your friend who had to take a couple of nights off, and go away for a little bit, then come back, $500. That's all you need. I partnered with a credit union. Secured credit card. We talked about this at breakfast. You put $500 into the secured credit card. You will get a Team Hochberg secured credred card. I make zero money on this. Why am I doing this? Because I want friends, I want your buddy to not be credit invisible anymore, get back on the grid. Because if you're away and you're not using your credit, it just dies. Okay? You're not paying the monthly. He might have late payments because he hasn't made the annual payment.
Right. I think his son was paying him stuff. I think he actually has credit history. I think for him particularly, and your grander point is important, but I think for him I was more worried about just the inability to show that he's had a job the last few months.
You got to show typically if it's a W-2 job, we have to explain why he was away. Hourly job, you got to show at least a year. Okay. Or there are certain loan programs if you get the owner of the company to say, hey, we're going to guarantee him 40 hours and you've got a track record for 3, 4, 5 months of 40 hours. It makes sense. They'll look past that. But that's where a cosigner comes in.
Got it.
Gets him on his feet. He gets strong, refinances down the road as rates come down, God willing, and pulls the other cosigner off.
Yeah, I wasn't even going to bring it up. The only reason I brought it up is because you were saying how there's yes, there's guidelines, but there's also human beings making decisions. Like you said earlier, you make the case. Okay, they're buying a $2 million or they're buying an $800,000 place, calling a primary residence. Well, we just gave them a mortgage on a $1.5 million place 2 years ago. What gives? Well, here's the story. Here's why. You know what I mean? You make those cases where some things, though, like not having an existing job with pay coming in, that's going to be that guideline ain't going to be able to be flexible. Correct. And I thought maybe it could, with the risk being 50% LTV.
There will be a lender out there that will give your friend money.
Okay.
At what cost is it going to be in the interest rate to obtain that money?
Got it.
And what's the cost and closing costs in order to secure the funds.
Got it.
So we don't have any of those lenders, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But there is a lender out
Someone
there.
will do it.
Somebody will do it, but your friend's got to be careful.
Well, it's just got to be someone that's comfortable with so I've done a couple hard dollar money loans, man, and I stopped doing it because it's like, dude, I was charging 15%. The hard dollar money loan for people is just private money. Hey, you
hard
want
money loans.
Yeah, you need money to do whatever. And I stopped doing it because it was secured by the damn real estate, and I'm making this money and I'm making 15%. Hey, this is great, but it's like, dude, one of these forecloses, it's going to be a big pain in my rear end, and it's going to wipe out all my profits for the last 3 years, So I would imagine the banks that want to take on that stuff, not only are they doing high fees, they're very comfortable with the foreclosure process.
Well, and those high fees that they're taking are typically the costs that are going to be carrying if the guy or gal or couple goes belly up.
Okay.
To run out here in Illinois, it could take up to a year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. The upfront, and each state's different.
Yep.
And you've got followers in 50 states.
Yeah.
So just be careful. But if your friend or your followers don't have credit, within 4 months, I could have a credit established, have a pulse, and start building back up.
Yeah, yeah. And then, the plan's always, hey, man, get back to making money. You don't got to worry about this. He's got a little bit of a runway right now, so hopefully it works out for him, because I know he'll be listening to this because he is interested in this topic right now. But, Dave, I want to give you a kind of I don't know, for lack of a better word, a little bit of a commercial here, man. Yeah. Just doing what I do on social media, I got people from different industries contacting me on a pretty regular basis. And this conversation we're having right now reminds me of, why I kind of wanted to work with you anyway. And for anybody listening, I'm going to be doing something with Dave here that I haven't really done before, but it kind of goes in the direction I'm going with financial literacy and those kinds of posts, where I'm going to set up like a referral thing to send Dave business. And there's other people in the mortgage industry that have reached out to me. Dave's definitely not the only person I know, but the company he represents is solid. But even bigger than that, we had stuff in common and had a relationship before going down that path. Right. And it kind of had started in a professional relationship with the Chicago police, the vestathon thing they do. But I think in the mortgage industry especially, man, first of all, there's realtors chiming in. I call them chimer-inners. Don't know what the heck they're talking about. They shouldn't even be talking about it. Some do, but most of the realtors don't know a lot of what we just discussed today.
Right.
And then there's also people in the mortgage industry. God bless Obama for clearing out a lot of the people that shouldn't have been in the first place. Mm-hmm. If you want to give Obama credit for that, I think it was the president when that was all happening, right?
Yep.
But even now, still though, it's not the highest barrier of entry to get into your business. The barrier is higher than it used to be.
Sure.
But people could still sneak into this industry that aren't necessarily astute. They're not necessarily students of the game. And you not only get back to people with detail, you're thorough with your answers, and obviously you've demonstrated that you know this stuff inside and out. And you could have a guy working in the business for 30 years that just doesn't operate that way. He's more of a salesman trying to make a deal. So that's why I was comfortable going down this path with you.
No, thank you. We appreciate that. And there's a lot of opportunity to help out a lot of people. Listen, I've got 5,000 followers, right?
Yep.
But I've got an audience of 50,000 people every Saturday.
Right.
You're a different type of medium, right? I mean, you've got the internet and Instagram, and I don't. So I just thought it was a good marriage. And just in closing, because I know you got to run, I just wanted to cover a couple things.
Right.
Bankruptcies, which January, we're recording this January 22nd. It's bankruptcy season, and divorces, because it's January 22nd and it's divorce season.
Yep.
Right. I just want to let everybody know a couple different things. All because you're in a bankruptcy doesn't mean you cannot get another mortgage in the future. I get those calls all the time. I had a bankruptcy in the past. I'm going to be renting the rest of my life. No. There are loan programs out there. So if you're in a bankruptcy and you have enough equity, Chapter 13, you could refinance out of a Chapter 13 and get your feet back on the ground a lot quicker.
Yep.
If you have a Chapter 7, which is a complete blowout, right? You went to a bankruptcy attorney, all 50 states, the day you file your bankruptcy, you could open up 2 $500 Team Hochberg secured credit cards the day you file bankruptcy. So as your attorney is leaving and has got the docket stamped and has recorded the docs at the county, which is typically what they do on the way out, we could get you, if you have $1,000. If you don't have $1,000, $500. open up a new secured credit card that day.
Okay.
You're going to be spending, John, it costs you $100 a week if you got gas.
Yep.
You got to feed your family.
Yep.
So you're going to be dumping $200 to $300, maybe $400 a week just in stuff, right?
Yep.
I call it the 4 T's: toothpaste, toilet paper, tampons, transportation, just to get around. So instead of paying cash during those 2 years of your bankruptcy and not reestablishing your credit, the day you file bankruptcy on a Chapter 7, we have full access in all 50 states to help your listeners and your followers rebuild their credit. After a Chapter 7, after a Chapter 13, you can get a mortgage. There are rules. Call me. We could discuss this. Divorce. Okay, you've got a lot of friends. I got a lot of friends. Hey, it didn't work out. You had your 10, 15-year run. 20. I'm divorced. You're divorced. Okay.
Yep.
You can get a loan after a divorce. There are rules. Again, people are like, I'll never get a loan. Yeah, you can. You just got to know the rules.
Yep.
So these are the things we can help that. And last but not least, self-employed borrowers. You know the challenge. You were self-employed. You have all those houses.
Yep.
Your accountant, you're paying your accountant very good money to make your income as low as humanly possible. You are paying your accountant, all your self-employed individuals, your CPA, to keep that number down. Here's a challenge.
Right.
You go to buy a house and you have to use those 2 years tax returns, it makes it more challenging.
Yep.
I'll give you 2 examples and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah.
One guy went to 3 different banks, got turned down 3 different banks.
Yep.
He's running $2 million a month.
Wow.
$2 million a year.
Yeah.
Through his businesses.
Okay.
It was like $160,000-$170,000 a month through his businesses. 3 banks turned him down because his accountant made it look like he was making $550 an hour, like it was like 1984. Okay. 200. He had a $1.1 million property, $100,000 loan. He needed $880 to pull out in order to finance his company. Leverage.
Okay.
We're back to leverage.
Yep.
Nobody would do it. Called me up. 12 months worth of bank statements. Pooped through a goose. Closed it last week. He pulled out 720 some G's, whatever it was, putting it back to his business so he could expand. It was cheaper to finance it through a mortgage.
Yep.
Last example.
Yep.
Guy owned 10 different fast food chains. Okay. Golden Arches.
Yep.
Okay. Got the tax return. He had a property here and he had a property down south. Trying to get his accountant was great, but his accountant was a freaking magician.
Yep.
Right? He had LLC set up and he was deducting everything.
Right.
It was beautiful.
Yep.
If you're them, it was a pain in the rear end if you're a loan originator.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, all right, I'm losing my mind. I got $2.2 million worth of loans here. I made all these promises, great rate. I'm like, what does he got coming through?
Yep.
$34 million a month. With the 10, 15 different fast food chains.
Yep.
I'm like, all right, F the bank statement, F the tax return. Just bring in the bank statements.
Right.
Boom.
Got it
12
done.
months worth of bank statements, more ample income, big portfolio loan, done. So your followers, couple things I just want to leave. We're going to work together.
Right.
It's consultations. If any of your it's a free consultation.
Right.
You want to open up credit, you want to do credit analysis.
Yep.
It's a free credit analysis.
Nice.
You want to get pre-approved for a mortgage? It's a free pre-approval. We're not going to charge you $500 like these online lenders that you don't know. They're going to ram it to you.
Yep.
And if it's not in your best interest, we're not going to do it.
Yep.
And I encourage all of your followers to go to Google, type in Team Hochberg, Hochberg.
Yep.
I think at the taping we were at 539 5-star reviews.
Okay.
Please look and read what others are saying about us.
Yep.
Because other lenders that got 15 or 20, they're all their friends and family.
Yeah.
You don't get to 539.
Yeah.
I don't have that many friends.
No, I went and looked at it when we first started talking. Because, dude, I got a lot of haters, as you know. So I know people are going to try to poke holes in any road I go down with, any people I go down it with. So I did see that. I saw it was over 500 when I went in there. And Google reviews are hard to fake, man. You can't go in there with a bunch of spam accounts and mess around with that. Like and
they'll flag it and they'll shut you down.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you for coming on. You were the first of our long form interviews.
Awesome.
I appreciate you sharing your knowledge and your expertise on the self-employed and your 2,000% raise. Follow John Cerasani. What's your
just
Instagram handles?
At John Cerasani is my Instagram. John Cerasani TV is my YouTube. And then and TikTok, I guess, is sticking around now. Yeah. So at John Cerasani for TikTok as well.
All right. Home Sweet Home Chicago, Saturdays, 10 until 1 after House Smarts with Lou Manfredini. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.